And so, who finds these properties for you? Do you go through a realtor? Would it be like a land
I,
realtor or regular
I
realtor? Or
don't use realtors. I don't use those.
what do you do?
I don't use those. The best way I found them is I was at, well, except for the one in Texas, the one in Oklahoma, I was in the town
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it, and I knew somebody who knew the owner, so that's how I got that. Um, I met the 4 acres, the first 4 acres I got. Um, I met it was a family, so I
Mm-hmm.
met them and went out. They showed me a couple of properties, and I picked that one. So personal contact on the ground. The one that I found online, the 10 acres, eBay.
Don't forget to check out the PDF that I have in the description concerning moving a mobile home.
Hi, this is Kelly from Hills, Deals, and Wheels Mobile Home Investing Course available on Vimeo. And today we have a special guest, a personal friend of mine. I met him actually 5 years ago at a tiny home convention. He is a land investor. His name is LA. LA, you want to introduce yourself to the people?
I'm LA or LA Davis. You just mentioned, we met about 5 years ago at a tiny house summer camp
Mm-hmm.
uh, up in New England, and it, I got a lot out of it. I went that year that I met you, and I went the next year after that. But I've
Okay.
been in housing, which includes real estate, since 1983.
Okay. And so did you
Uh,
take like any kind of course or anything like that or
I started with it was the Laurie Nickerson course, cost $500. After Albert Laurie and William Nickerson, the early real estate gurus, and it was a $500 weekend, and they gave you a notebook, and they had a support group that met once a month after that, and from that, um, I went out and tried the ideas, and eventually, I took that course in 1981. I
okay.
signed my first contract in 1982 and closed on my first two buildings in 1983, two 4 unit buildings.
Wow. So is
I
it a
was I
is
was
it
25 at the time. So
wow, okay. Is it a residential building or is this a business?
no, it was a 4 unit building.
Okay. And you still have those
Four
to
plus, huh?
you still have those today?
Oh no, no, no. Those I got rid of those years ago.
Okay. All right.
Had I kept them, they probably would have been worth a million, almost. Well, put it, they would have been worth at least $500,000 each had I kept them today.
Wow.
But I didn't figure out, I didn't factor in inflation and stuff like that.
Okay. And so when you purchased those units, about how much were they worth when you purchased them?
One was 64,000, and the other one was 68,000.
Okay. So you do land and you do real estate. You just don't do land.
Well, I started out doing real estate. Now, I want to make a distinction here, particularly for beginners. There's a distinction between real estate and personal property.
Okay.
Um, I'm still in real estate has a housing component, but I'm more into housing that is classified as personal property. It's rarely referred to as personal property, but legally it's personal property. So if it's real estate is any kind of housing that's permanently attached to the ground
Okay.
on a concrete foundation. I've got a little bit of that, but anything new, it's got to be mobile some kind of way.
Okay.
It doesn't have to have wheels on it. It can have wheels, skids, but I can take it down and move it to another location. And that's personal property. Like mobile homes,
Right.
as you know, that's
Right.
personal property. It's not real estate.
Right.
You can convert it to real estate, but the moment you convert it to real estate, then the local taxing authority is your de facto senior partner. So if you don't pay the municipal water bill, or if you don't pay the taxes, they can take your debt-free house away from you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I never understood why people want to, permanently fixate their mobile home to the land, because you causing yourself all kind of financial problems when you do stuff
A
like
whole bunch,
that.
and then different court systems come into play. So, and I changed my thinking on this through trial and error, and a squatter that squatted in one of my properties. So I learned, I got out of the city for anything new, and then I just deal with rural property, starting off with land.
Okay.
So I like to buy land. Um, I like to buy land that is unimproved. The only improvement it might have will be the road that leads to the property. That's it. I don't want nobody's electricity. I don't want any municipal water. I don't want any of that, because I know how to set up those systems myself.
So basically, you talking about something that's like off the grid. Is that my understanding, or?
Right. Off the grid.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say you able to set up the water and electricity and everything yourself, are you licensed to do that, or when you're out that
Well,
far?
if you do it on your own, well, number one, the reason why I choose rural locations, because rural locations, at least the ones I pick, have small populations, under 2,000 people. All right. So I give an example. I got a 10-acre tract in Texas, in Presidio County, Texas. So now it's a small town, less than 2,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas, Texas, or San Antonio or Houston, those metro areas have over 1 million people. But if I bought something in those areas of Texas, or even Austin, Texas, with the more people, the more rules and regulations, the more regulation. That means the less money that I can actually make, and less freedom to do what I want to do with the property. Mm-hmm. So I bought the 10 acres it's a big county with a small population, and I can basically do what I want to do.
Okay.
So there are rules in the larger cities that don't apply to the smaller cities. So that's another reason why I buy land in rural areas.
Okay. And since this land is so far out, I'm sure the price is quite appetizing too, correct? Or
very.
Okay.
I've got a place on a 95 court in the DMV, and the property taxes on that is like $7,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
For a house on a city lot. Okay. And on the 10 acres, I paid for that outright. I paid $2,000 for 10 acres, no mortgage. My property taxes that I paid earlier this year, when I paid it late, was something like $37.88 or $38.77, something like that, under $40. For 10 acres, that's like 10 football fields. So I don't have to worry about code enforcement. Zoning is very liberal. The property is zone agriculture, which gives me a lot of freedom.
Okay.
So I can basically do practically anything I want to on that 10 acres, $200 an acre. So you're right. That's why that's one of the you get more for your money.
Right. So you could possibly throw some mobile homes on there, a mixture of mobile homes and tiny homes.
And that's another reason why I got the 10 acres.
Okay. All right.
And this coincides with how we what we met. Prior to meeting, a day before I met you,
Uh-huh.
I was up in Burlington, Vermont,
Okay.
at a hospital, and I got in there late, and people were sitting around chopping it up. And this one person told me about this. I told him I was going to a tiny house, summer camp where we met.
Mm-hmm.
And then he told me about this little community in Texas, in far west Texas. And that's where I ended up buying that 10 acres in the next county over.
Wow. And so even though there's not a whole lot of people out there and you probably couldn't get a whole lot of rent, you still barely paid any money for that.
Well, yeah, true. And it's the main thing I'm looking for is cash flow.
Okay.
Cash flow and the zero debt.
Right. Right. Okay. So LA, can you share with us about how many properties that you do own? Can you share with that?
I've got as far as acres, I've got 10 acres in Texas, an acre and a half in Oklahoma, and 4 acres. I'm in Florida right now, so I got 4 acres in North Florida, about 3 hours away from where I'm at. And then as far as now, all that's this land,
Okay.
and I'll put buildings not permanently on there, but I will place them on there. And then when they're not occupied, it's designed where we can disassemble it in less than an hour, put it on a flatbed or a U-Haul, and move it to another location. So that's 14. That's 14. Let's see, 15 acres in 3 states, and then I've got 4 houses in 3 states.
Okay. And roughly,
They would be classified as real estate. Oh, and then there's a tiny house that I have in another part of Central Florida.
okay.
That's 144 square feet.
144 square feet. Well, that's pretty
Right.
tiny. Okay. All right.
Well,
And,
it's tiny, not real tiny, but it's tiny.
okay. All right. And so how much is that particular house cash flowing you for? Because that would be considered a very tiny home, correct?
I can probably I got it sitting there right now, but I can probably pull 250 out of it.
Okay. And so my whole concept about the tiny home when we went out there, and we talked about this before. I mean, you need like a truck to haul that off, and then LA, what is keeping somebody from, backing the truck up and moving that away? I mean, how are you really going to track that
Well,
mobile home or single family home?
some mobile home, I mean, some tiny houses do get stolen.
Okay.
But you can. The main thing is you want to get somebody in the house.
Mm-hmm.
My idea is basically to sell them a house and not use it as strictly as a rental property.
Okay.
And that way, if they have a vested interest in it, the security part is upon them. Now, the truck that you're talking about, the lady that was up there when we met, yeah, I saw that she had a pretty big.
Right.
But most people, I think a lot of people who build those tiny houses, I don't think they move them a lot, although they have wheels on. But my whole thing is, I just want to have something that I can put up, I can assemble it in an hour or less, and then disassemble it, and then put it on put it on a U-Haul.
Okay. All right.
So, it's smaller and lighter.
Okay. And so who finds these properties for you? Do you go through a realtor? Would it be like a land
I,
realtor or regular
I
realtor? Or
don't use realtors. I don't use those.
what do you do?
I don't use those. The best way I found them is I was except for the one in Texas, the one in Oklahoma, I was in the town
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it, and I knew somebody who knew the owner, so that's how I got that. I met the 4 acres, the first 4 acres I got. I met it was a family, so
Mm-hmm.
I met them and went out. They showed me a couple of properties, and I picked that one. So personal contact on the ground. The one that I found online, the 10 acres, eBay.
Wow. And you know what?
eBay.
I never do eBay because it seems like it's the same advertisements there, especially when it comes to mobile home. I'm like, this is the same mobile home been on here forever. But either it's a fake
Mhm.
ad or they just have a bunch of them. I was just never impressed with eBay. I'm more of a Facebook marketplace type of person.
Well, Facebook Marketplace is better. Um, I was on eBay. I used to auction houses on eBay, um, but that was like 2005, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. And so, what is your plan for all of this land that does not have a home on it? What is your big plan?
To basically put communities on there, micro communities.
Okay.
So people that need a place to park, people that are looking for a place to live, that they're tired of paying utility bills and all that other stuff. So that's my plan.
Okay. So you have some land that's not currently occupied by anybody, but at the same time, you don't owe any money
Yeah,
on it.
I'm working on the 4 acres that is 3 hours away from me. I'll put three. By the end of the summer, I'll have three buildings on that location.
Mm-hmm.
They won't be permanent. It's
Mm-hmm.
only when I'll rent those out. But as soon as they leave, I'll take them down and transport them back here.
Okay. And so I have heard of people flipping land. Is that something that you do? You buy the land low and then you turn around and you sell it even higher. People are doing that with parking lots as well.
Yeah, there are quite a few people to do it. I don't do it, but I
Oh,
know quite a few people that do it, but I don't do it.
okay. All
My
right.
strategy is a little bit different. I look at the component parts of a house, which is the floor, the walls, and the ceiling. So uh, my idea of flipping is actually manufacture the floors, the walls, and the roof, put it in a kit, and sell you the kit.
Wow. And so who is putting it together once, and I guess the kid arrives on the truck or something like that?
Yeah, like right, or yeah, the rides on the truck, and then you can assemble it. Well, I'm organizing live events to teach you how to assemble your own place.
Okay. Okay. And so how much would something like that run?
For something basic, yeah, about $7,000.
Wow. So that's like affordable living at at its max.
Right. Well, one of the ideas, and I guess you sort of solidified it when you have one of your videos I watched on YouTube several times. It was talking about the matter of fact, you defined the niche market that is now my niche market. Um, Several people I forgot what percentage was in the United States have a household income of $20,000 or less.
Yes. Yes.
So when I heard you say that, I had an aha moment. I
Mm-hmm.
said, you know what? I'm a constant. And you're right. A lot of those people live in mobile homes.
True.
All right. So, and then another thing you had on that video, the single family. A lot of people can't afford to live in a single family house.
It's true. It's true.
So, particularly in a Dallas, Houston, Chicago, DC, LA, those places.
Right.
So, um, and like, so I'm glad you sort of got into this because I had heard of what's his name, Lonnie Scruggs, years ago. Met him once,
I know you told me you met her.
but I never had any interest in mobile homes.
Okay.
So then I've seen you keep on putting out these videos. So I said, well, let me start watching the videos. And then when you broke it down like that, I said, you know what? Concentrate on households because there's a whole bunch of people that have a household income of $20,000 or less.
That's so true.
So they're easy to find.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And a lot of those people might live in a big city and they really need to move to a mobile home community.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I guess they haven't gotten past the stigma yet.
Right. And so, you know what, LA, since this pandemic, you know, a lot of people should have learned to live within their means. And mobile homes, that's where it's going to be. Tiny homes, that's where it's going to be. But it's kind of hard to find a place, especially if you're living in the inner city, to put a tiny home.
Well, in a big city, because you're in between, I'm not, between Texas and California, you're not going to, unless you got political connections, you're not going to put a tiny house because politically zoning is not going to allow it in a Los Angeles or San Francisco, no places like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand Los Angeles the city of Los Angeles has opened up a tiny house community. But about 4 years ago, the guy's got a YouTube video. They shut a guy down from doing that.
But I'm telling you, LA, now I'm going to tell you, underneath the bridges here in Concord, Oakland, underneath the bridges, they have tiny homes. They have built tiny home communities underneath these bridges where you get on, the on-ramp of the highway.
Right.
Now they won't let you have a tent. You know, we got homeless people out there building tents. They won't let you have that. They tear that down. But they're okay. They have built tiny home communities underneath some of these bridges out here in California. So that's a shocker. And that just goes to show you things is getting tight.
So zoning hasn't come, code enforcement hasn't come through and made a move yet?
No, they are the ones, I believe, the government is putting those homes up. I'm not talking about one tiny home. I'm talking about a bunch.
Well, if the government gets their cut, they allow it in.
Right.
But if they don't get their cut, it ain't happening.
So, LA, I'm just doing a visualization. So the homes that you have in this kit, that would be something similar to like you see at Lowe's or Home Depot, like a storage type of shed, but on a larger scale.
Yeah, depending on who buys it, it'll be pimped out. Whatever they want,
right,
and whatnot, because they have a vested interest in it. One thing I would like to do is, and that's why I'm studying your videos and some others, is the amount of the mobile homes. Because now I look on Facebook Marketplace myself at mobile homes. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at like the 3.2s.
Right.
And some of those you can get at real good low prices. I mean, they probably need some work.
Right.
But because most people are not going to live tiny.
Right.
That's just, you're not going to do it.
Right. And I tell you, I had a 4.2. And I actually sold that twice to a family of 7, 2 families of 7. So I can't see them living in no tiny home. That's not going to work for them.
No, the tiny house you got to be built a certain way for that. Mm-hmm. I can do it, but that's me. Right. But most people, psychologically, and depends on their lifestyle and their family situation, they're not going to live in something that's under, I call anything under 399 square feet tiny.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But the average person is not going to do that. And I realize that. So
So, LA, when you look at this land, what is your criteria? It just can't be price. It's cheap. It has to be more than that.
Well, that's a part of it. All right. Well, the first 4 acres, it's wooded. So I wasn't looking for that. It's just when I ran across it, and I purchased it like on July 3rd, about same time I met you. Um, it's wooded, so you walk a few yards from the road, and you can't. I bought it for security reasons,
Mm-hmm.
so it's natural security there. So that's why I bought that one. Um, the water resources, I can do a well, or I can harvest rainwater. So, and then I have a company called Earth Wealth Energy.
Okay.
So it's got plenty of fallen branches and all that, which I can harvest that and then turn it into wood pellets for heat.
Okay.
So that's on that 4 acres. The acre and a half is in a little black township in Oklahoma, and I got that one because it's in a township. So I paid more for that acre, but the infrastructure is better, and you can there's a town there that's over 100 years old. It's within that town,
Mm-hmm.
so it's real safe. I mean, I slept there. I bought a house there before I bought that land, and I slept with the front door open all night,
Wow. Okay.
no problem. And then the 10 acres, that's desert and mountains,
Okay.
1 hour away from the Mexico border.
Okay. Okay.
So, and the primary reason for that one is I I can basically I call each one of these locations the real United States, where you can when you can actually live like an American. You
Mm-hmm.
actually own your house, and you don't have to worry about local government trying to nickel and dime you.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. So, LA, when you buy this land, or before you buy the
Mm.
land, do you have some kind of surveyors come in there and say, "Hey, this ain't a good deal," or
Not yet,
okay.
not yet.
Well, my whole concept, I'll be thinking, well, how do I know it's like not a huge sinkhole or something here? I'll be thinking, something like
That's
that.
a good question. I haven't thought of. I haven't that hadn't entered my mind until you mentioned it.
Okay.
Um, but and then you do hear about sinkholes occasionally. But in these locations, I haven't heard anything about that in those neck of the woods
Okay.
yet, and hopefully I won't ever.
So you don't do anything special to ensure that your money is going to waste. Well, number one, you don't pay a whole lot for it anyway, but you
No,
you don't insure if you lose the money, it's like not a big deal. But I'm saying for the average person trying to get into this business, you know, you have any recommendations? Or?
I would recommend a person who's starting off, if at all possible. I would say, now this is just me thinking. It's easy to start in a smaller market with less people. This I recommend people start in a rural area versus an urban area,
Mm-hmm.
because, like say, most urban areas is highly regulated.
Mm-hmm.
And if let's say you're getting a piece of rental property, um, you've been in the game long enough.
Mm-hmm.
Most beginners are not ready to be landlords.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One tenant that's court savvy can put you out of business or discourage you real quick.
Right. Because
So
I
I,
know
I reckon.
when I
Go
met
ahead.
LA, you actually had a squatter. You actually had a squatter that you couldn't. It's not funny, but you actually had a squatter that you.
Oh, it's funny now though, but
It was funny when you was telling me too, because is it my understanding this lady was just to check your mail or something to that effect?
This person, at the time I allowed her in the house, I was between that particular city and Europe, Germany. I was going back and forth. 6 months here, 6 months there. So I didn't want to rent it out to somebody I didn't know. And I knew this person. So I said, well, look. And they were on their way to a shelter.
Okay.
So I said, well, look. You can be a house sitter. You know, because it's 3 bedrooms in the house. So that arrangement worked out great until I asked her to leave. She don't want to leave.
Yeah, that is my big fear, is to get somebody in my property and they don't want to get out. But the best thing about being in the mobile home business, if they don't pay that lot rent, the park is going to kick them out for sure.
Well, the mobile home situation, I'm glad you brought that up. That's another thing. I would recommend people that are interested in real estate, and there's a lot of them. I would suggest go the mobile home, start with mobile homes. Don't, if you're in Chicago, find a mobile home park somewhere outside of Chicago. If you're at Dallas, Houston, find a mobile home community outside of those big cities. Start there. And matter of fact, you can even not only start there, but stay there and just build up your wealth from there.
Right.
That's what I would recommend.
Right. Like in Arizona, where they have a lot of those Indian reservations too, that would probably be a good start for somebody.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot of people that are like in rent court in Oakland, Dallas, Houston. A lot of those people really need to be in a mobile home community. But nobody's educated them on it, which is another reason why I like what you're doing. It's a lot of just a lot of black folk. We don't know about mobile homes yet, like we should. We're starting to get into it a little bit, but it's just not a black thing. It's a lot of people who are living in a single family house, particularly if they're renting a room. Let's say they're renting a room in Oakland, Dallas, Houston. For what you're paying to rent that room, you can have your own not tiny house, but a mobile home.
Right. And you know what, LA, there are people who actually rent the rooms out in the mobile home. They own the mobile home, but they'll rent the room out, like $600 a room. Where if they rented out if they would have rented it out to a single family, they would have got less.
Right.
So, and then there are also some parks who actually only deal with people who are sex offenders, and those sex offenders are not allowed in regular communities.
Right.
So people are making a lot of money
about so that's why I started watching your videos, because it's a niche. There's a lot of opportunity in that niche, and I don't think it's not saturated right now.
No, by no means. By no means is it saturated. Yeah. So on the land that you own, the acres that you own, have you ever thought about, like, because wood is getting crazy, the price of wood, you ever thought about harvesting trees there? Or
not yet. My whole thing is alternative building material, which is another reason why I like rural locations, because I can use PCV siding.
What is that?
Which is it's like a real hard plastic, and you can construct a building out of that. You can frame it with aluminum metal framing, which is lightweight, made out of aluminum. So I'll look for, and then I can also build out of pallets. So I'll look for alternative building materials to build.
Okay. So LA, do you have some type of degree in this, or because you be thinking some stuff I ain't never heard? Like, what are you talking about?
No, I went to undergraduate school in Texas, up in the Panhandle of Texas. It was West Texas State when I went there. Now it's West Texas A&M University up in Canyon, Texas, about 17 miles south of Amarillo. Now I read a bunch of books, went to some seminar workshops, and then I started buying stuff and just trial and error.
Okay. All right.
And then I networked with people and learned about just like we met.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You meet people, you get ideas.
Right.
And you get ideas that you're not going that this is not in a bookstore. So it's just like when we met, you told me about a particular niche market to rent to. I'm not even going to say it on this.
You still into that, huh? I see.
Well, you know what? I grew up in that niche, and I never thought about it.
Okay.
I mean, well, I don't even. I want to let it out, but
don't let it out.
Yeah. By going to workshops like that, and meeting people like yourself, and then on top of that, 5 years or 4 years later for you, I never would have thought that you of all people would have got into mobile homes.
Well, why is that? I was at the tiny home convention roughing it with you.
But we were out in the woods in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
But you were the best dressed person there for one.
I was matching. I had my Timberland boots on and I was matching.
Yeah, because we're all, just hanging out.
Okay.
I mean, you were dressed to pro, but you were the best. You don't think about best dressed in a situation like that. You were the best dressed. So, in the tiny house, mobile homes have a negative comment stigma. They really shouldn't, but they do. So, I never would have thought that you would have got. It just didn't click, but you do it.
Yeah.
So then I got inspired by that. I said, well, wait a minute, you know what? I watch at least one of your videos every day.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
But my favorite one so far, and I'll probably end up taking the course, is that informational one when you gave, the statistics, 20%, 20,000,
right.
That I've done a podcast on that, just repeating what you said. And on Mondays, I didn't do it today, but on Mondays, I'm setting that aside for Mobile Home Mondays.
Okay.
Because my podcast is titled "It's My House," as you know.
Okay.
So I think that's it's a sensible, viable, life-saving for some people housing model that can relieve people of a lot of distress.
Right. So let's get back to a little bit about your criteria when you find this land, other than price. I mean,
right?
As trees. I mean, is there any? There's no criteria.
Well, if I'm going to do it for mobile homes, because I want to set up communities, like the 10 acres in Texas, I don't have to worry about trees there. So I would want something that's relatively flat, and where I can set up a community where people can either park, set it up as close as a mobile home community without actually calling it a mobile home park.
Okay.
Because the moment you call it a mobile home park, and I'm still learning about that.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to follow that local jurisdiction's rules. I'm not that deep into it right now, but I have to learn that part of it.
Right.
But I think that's the way to go. One of the videos, I think this guy named Fredro, whatever.
John.
He had somebody. Yeah. He was talking about like a micro thing. So I know how to do a micro thing. Would be easy. Mm-hmm. but I'm doing more study on that and the wholesaling part, because I've wholesaled houses, but
Right.
I want to know a little, how you guys do it with the mobile homes,
It's so easy.
particularly the virtual thing.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so easy. Very easy. Well,
Okay.
with the virtual thing, you're gonna have to have somebody with boots
On
on
the
the ground.
ground.
You're gonna
Yeah.
have somebody that you trust. That's what you're gonna
Right.
have to do. Other than that, it's ain't nothing but a piece of paper. Some
Hmm.
places when you're trying to close a deal, you might have to go to the DMV. In Texas, we do most of our stuff online. So I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I mean it's nothing like real estate. And matter of fact, I have purchased cars where it took longer for me to purchase a car than it does to purchase a mobile home. You
See,
know,
I like what you're saying with that, because to go through a traditional brick and mortar home, title search, appraisals, so you got to get a loan and
mm,
the closing and all that. So you're more in control with mobile homes. That's
right.
another reason why the land. That's my plan, is to I'll probably have to partner with some people, because
Okay,
it's real easy to buy this land, but
okay,
I want to set up communities on it where I can basically um, have enough communities where I can have a real nice monthly income.
right. Now, as far as the inspectors and stuff, now the potential buyer can call the inspector on you. Like if I sell them a home, case in point, I had
Mhm.
a awning
Right.
secured on the mobile home that I had, and some of the neighbors was like it was making too much noise.
You know what? I think I saw that video, and then the inspector came out, but you were all right.
Oh, well, no, I wasn't all right. So
Oh,
the
oh,
inspector came
different
out.
video.
They
Okay.
told my contractor that he was going to have to fix that. And he later on told me that he was not, he didn't feel comfortable doing like the awning and roof and stuff like that. I said, well, I wish you would have told me that before, took on the work. And so I
Hmm.
wound up getting another contractor, and nothing against the first contractor, but I'm like, a little honesty goes a long way, because that metal
Hmm.
awning, if it would have got too windy, that could have took off and like possibly cut somebody's head off. That thing is sharp, you
Oh,
know.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah, right,
he put the slats of the wood in the same direction as the awning, so there was nothing really to secure it.
right.
And when a wind came, I mean, it was making a terrible noise. So yeah, a contractor, inspector came out because the
Hmm.
potential buyer and a neighbor called on me, and
Okay.
they only set that project back maybe a week, and then
Oh,
after
that's not bad.
yeah after, but I mean it could have been worse. I mean, by that wind blowing, that could have really hurt somebody,
Right,
and
right.
I would have been sued. So yeah,
Well, live and
but
learn.
very rarely will somebody call an inspector on you, because we're talking about poor people. They're so happy to get into these mobile homes. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and you know what?
Mm.
LA in the beginning, I'm not gonna even lie, it was about the money for me. But when you see the things that you're doing for people and the affordable housing that
Right.
you're providing, nah, no,
Well, that's why I like those statistics that you gave out, because it seems like the people that live in mobile homes are more realistic about their budget. Because you have a lot of people that are in rent court, name the city, rent court, and they're living above their means.
right, right,
And you can't tell a grown person how to live and where to live.
right.
But the people that live in, I feel I can find somebody that works at Taco Bell and they can afford to live in a mobile home,
True, definitely,
and they're realistic about it.
right.
Whereas people that might live in Washington, D.C., New York, Dallas, Houston, those places, um, they're living above their means.
That's true. But what I will say is that a lot of the potential buyers that I have, they have no
Hmm.
concept of credit. They don't understand. I had a lady, case in point, she co-signed on a vehicle for somebody else, and I asked
Hmm.
her, "Do you have any repossession?" She said, "No." I checked her credit. She had a repossessed vehicle on there, And I said, hey, you have a repossessed vehicle. You told me you didn't have any repossessions. She said, no, that's not mine. That's my friend's. I said, but you co-signed. And then she said, okay, well, how about if I give you more money for the mobile home? I said, no, I do not allow people who've had repossessions to live in my home in a mobile home park. They don't fool around with people who have repossession. And she could not get that concept. She even told me, what does that have to do with me? And I told her everything. That has everything to do with you. So in this business, you're going to run into a lot of people who have bad credit. And if you're going to be in this business, you better find a way to screen these people before they go to the park manager, because when the park manager is going to be looking at you like, Kelly, why did you let them come over here to apply to the park when you knew she had a repossession? You're wasting the park manager's time.
Right.
Yeah, but the credit thing has been a big issue for a lot of people in trying to buy the mobile homes. That's been one of the big obstacles.
Okay, well, all right.
Yeah.
Educational.
Yeah. So LA, so since your properties are like all over and you're pretty much all over too, do you have like a management company or?
I'm in stationary for the last couple of years.
Okay.
Electronics is how I do things. I got some boots on the ground people. A management company, I tried that years ago. Only way I would probably do a management again would be if I get married to somebody and it's a family business, and then I'll train them to be the manager.
Okay. All right.
That's how that's how I would do that.
And what about insurance for these properties?
Insurance is, the city's properties are, is normal for insurance, and the land is no insurance.
Okay, so if there was like a big old brush fire or something, you don't try to get compensated any kind of way for that, or?
No, I haven't even run across anybody, other owners that pops up. It's a total different mindset than the city.
Okay. And so I got a good question. So since your properties are like way out, okay, the mobile home is going to have to be, or this kit that you're talking about is going to have to be transported to that property. Is that a financial expense for you?
Well, speaking about boots on the ground, I can have parts made locally and then just have that person deliver it to that location.
Okay.
Instead of having them made right here. Like the ones here in Florida, we can do it in Florida. The other ones, we have local boots on the ground people that, nobody knows what each body's doing. So somebody will make the floors, somebody will make the roof, and then put together in the kit. And then that's why we're going to start doing live events for people that buy the kit on how to put together your own house. So it's their debt-free house.
Okay.
And
so the home roughly cost this kit costs about $7,000. So
what I'm thinking of right now, yeah.
And does that include like the parts that cannot be made locally? That all that's included in the $7,000?
Well, if you want extras, okay, we can include the extras, but that's just for a basic
roof and a floor.
Right, roof. Yeah, the basics: the roof, walls, floor.
Okay, all right. And so, how long does it take, like, for you to construct something like that?
If I get about 2 or 3 people with me, we can put it together in about an hour.
About an hour. And so, and it's pretty sturdy. You don't have to worry about a strong wind coming and it's going to be down the street or anything like that.
Well, now, can't guarantee against anything about acts of God.
Okay. Okay. And so, and then you do the running water and electricity and.
No, we educate them, or we'll be educating them on water, off the grid type stuff. We have to educate them on that, because the average person is the average person doesn't know anything about off the grid living.
Okay.
You know, they all they know is consumption and flick a switch, the water's here, the lights on. So we teach them, educate them on solar. Then bring in somebody that teaches you how to grow food if you want to grow food, that type
Right.
of stuff.
Yeah. So when we talk about off the grid, would you say when we were out there in Vermont, was that like the worst off the grid? Because I was actually in the military for 20 years, and off the grid for me was like not having my cell phone, even though we did live in the woods. But in Vermont, that was a whole nother off the grid for me.
Well, you probably I've been in the military, so I don't know what that experience is like. But all right, we were on 10 acres, and I stayed in a cabin on that
Right.
10 acres.
Right.
And there was some running water. There was running water there, and they had a toilet there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that was about it.
Mm-hmm. But there was some people
Uh,
who were actually camping out there.
there was a bunch of people that what car camping as they called it,
Mm.
and then it was in the cabin I slept in there. It was it's about 6 of us
Okay.
in that cabin.
Okay. All right. And I wasn't really off the grid because I actually stayed in a hotel, and I would
I
come
would
there.
call that off the grid, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard. I wouldn't call it hardcore off the grid, but it was off the grid though.
So these properties you're talking about that you own will be hardcore off.
You know what? They're similar to that setting where we met at.
Okay.
Now, there's one exception: is you can get Wi-Fi in 2 of those locations.
Okay.
I don't know if you can get Wi-Fi in the one in Texas, but the 2 of the locations you can get Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So
LA, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years concerning whether it's tiny homes, mobile homes, these land deals that you do? Where do you see yourself in these kits that you'll be selling? Where do you see yourself?
I would like to have about 100 tiny house communities.
Okay. All right.
I want to set up communities at least 100, and with that, I'll be able to virtually do anything I want to do.
Okay. All right.
I've studied people that, and I've found a common denominator is they just took simple things. Well, I'll give you the best example. Christopher Columbus came over here, and basically Europe followed him and just developed it. So I use the same type of principle. If you look at some of the modern people, what's his name? Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook is just a glorified website, but the internet is unregulated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Bill Gates, software, it's still virtually unregulated. Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, they're unregulated. So when it comes to housing, the primary reason why I go rural is little or almost zero regulation.
Right. Which I mean, that's an excellent idea.
Right. So, I'll look for locations like where we met.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not going to be as comfortable as Burlington, Vermont, or Boston, Massachusetts. It's not going to be convenient as a larger city, but you have more freedom. So you can, like most people that live in a large metro area, they're going to work to pay that rent, to pay that electric bill, to pay that water bill, to pay that car note, and they really don't. A lot of them don't even get to enjoy their home. And then in
Right.
your larger cities, like you mentioned, Oakland, the way I see it, I like to have your thoughts on it. It looks like to live in a larger city these days in the United States, you virtually have to be wealthy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely.
So give me, like in that statistic that you brought out in that video, that's my favorite video by you so far. And you got a bunch of them. Is household incomes $20,000 or less. That's my niche.
Right. Because it's going to be hard to have a place here by yourself for $20,000 and less. And you know, LA, I have roommates, and I make damn good money, and I have roommates. It's too expensive. It's too
Right.
expensive to live here. I don't know how somebody would do it on
Well,
$20,000.
what I like about what you're doing, your business model is you're building up a replaceable income where you can eventually dwarf what you make being a nurse.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. So, LA, you mentioned your podcast and you interviewed me. And
Yeah.
before we go, I do appreciate you allowing me to interview you today. But you have since developed Mobile Home Mondays on your podcast. Can you tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that? And if somebody want to listen in, how would they reach out to you?
Well, that was inspired by you, Mobile Home Mondays. And it's the podcast is called "It's My House Is on Monday." We do podcasts 5 days a week, but if anybody's interested in mobile homes, and I'm not versed in mobile homes yet,
Okay.
but if anybody, I'll bring on guests like yourself.
Okay.
I have one other person that he's out in Oklahoma. He bought a mobile home. It's on Mondays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the number is 619-768-2945.
Okay. All right. So, LA, you got any final words before we leave here? Somebody who's trying to do what you do or get in the mobile home business, tiny home business, land business?
Well, first thing, thank you for inviting me on for this interview because I had to start using this technology myself. I'm paying for StreamYard right now, but I got to monetize it. And I would recommend people buy Kelly's course, watch all of her videos, and buy the course. And particularly for beginners, it's a good way to start mobile homes. And if you're currently a landlord and you got somebody that's giving you the blues, take a serious look at mobile homes.
Right. Right. Because it's definitely a win-win situation. Definitely.
Right.
So,
I mean, if I had to start over again, I would go to mobile home route.
and you know what, LA, if I had to start over again, I would have never went to college. I would have immediately started investing in mobile homes. I don't know where I would have found the money, but I would have never gone to college. I would probably be a billionaire by now.
What did you major in college?
You know what I majored in. I'm a registered
Oh yeah,
nurse.
yeah. No. Some people major in something and they get into something different.
Oh well,
Um,
years ago I seen my
but
grandmother.
you know what? You're absolutely right. Like I said, I found out about Lonnie Scruggs it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And I just dismissed it. Trailer park trash, and all
Yeah.
those stereotypes.
Yeah.
Um, and you're right, Chihuahua. She wants attention. I would say, yeah, the mobile home, the demographics, everything that it's the best housing option out there, in my opinion.
Right. Right.
And now you know more about this than I do, but I know here in Florida, there's some mobile home parks that have accepted tiny homes.
Well, yeah, they do have tiny homes in some of the parks. I don't invest in those. I like all of my parks that I invest in to have all mobile homes, some uniformity. I don't invest, not saying that I wouldn't, but that's just not my ideal place to invest in. Yeah.
Now, will you be setting up your own mobile home park? Well, you'll
Will
probably
I?
buy one eventually.
Well, yeah, I will probably buy an existing one. I don't have the
Mhm.
skills that you do. But like you said, you're looking to partner up, and I'm game if you game. So yeah, I don't have the skills that you do. So it would probably be best for me to buy something that's already in existence, and it doesn't have to be large.
Right.
10, 12 mobile homes. I'm satisfied. If I own the land and I own the mobile home, that's a wrap.
And that's another reason why. Now, I didn't have the intention of doing mobile homes when I started buying land. But now that I'm looking at it, because I'm looking at some places to rent, some people charge the lowest rent I've heard of is like $250 for a lot, and that includes water.
I've heard of lower than that, like $135. And
Oh,
those
okay.
are more of the low budget type of,
Uh-huh.
or probably somewhere that's really far out, like the
Right.
land.
And then I've heard of some that have $500, $600, $700 a month rent, lot
Oh,
rent.
well, here in California, it can get up to 1,000. Yeah,
Well, that's California.
yeah, that's
So,
California. That's California.
but now I got a friend of mine. She lives in Northern California, up in the Shasta area, and she's on almost 3 acres of land, but it's not a mobile home situation. So, like I say, the further you go out, the less expensive things get. So, but anyway, I had to learn a whole lot more about mobile homes. So,
Mhm.
um, it's that's my plan. To mix the two together, tiny houses with mobile homes.
Okay, well, thank you, LA. This is Kelly from Hills, Deals, and Woods Mobile Home Investing Course, available on Vimeo. And we just finished talking to LA. He's a big time land investor, real estate investor, tiny home investor. And he's about to be hopefully a mobile home investor. Thank you once again, LA, for being on my channel.